everybody, how you doing? I'm Sophia Parola, your host with Garden State Film Festival, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing the people behind the making of the short film called Hotline. It is premiering this year at the Garden State Film Festival, and congratulations to you all for not only getting accepted, but making a short film.
Thank you.
Thanks. Very cool, very cool. Yeah, I had a chance to watch it. I was telling them before, I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I thought it was a very cool, awesome idea, but I'll let them be the ones to talk it up. I'd love to hear from each of you first. Just introduce yourself and the title in the film. I'd love to start off with you, Jeremiah.
Sure. I'm Jeremiah Kipp, and I'm one of the producers of Hotline.
Thank you very much. And Susanna?
I'm Susanna Nolan, and I wrote Hotline.
Thank you. And last but very not least, Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Potsby, and I am the other producer for Hotline.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And Jeremiah, I'd love to ask you, for everyone out there who is wondering, what is Hotline? Can you give us a little synopsis about the short film?
Sure. Hotline takes place on Thanksgiving Day, and a lonely woman who is desperately trying to arrange a Thanksgiving feast for her family, is running into enormous problems with her turkey. Fortunately for her, there is an emergency hotline for turkey preparation. And when she calls, the person that she speaks with helps her get out of the jam, but also there are elements of the rom-com that ensue.
Very cool, very cool. Well said. Yeah, so I thought the idea of it, a hotline on Thanksgiving, is pretty hilarious. Susanna, I'd love to ask you how you came up with this idea and how did you write this film?
Well, it's interesting. You know that this was all taped during the pandemic. And one of the challenges we had doing this is that they had to self-tape during this. So I had to come up with a concept. We'd wanted to keep creating even in the middle of the pandemic, but it needed to be something that could be plausibly dramatic. And a phone conversation is the easiest way to keep people isolated, but still trying to connect. And really, I think something that comes up a lot is this isolation that everyone's been experiencing with the pandemic, and how people try to connect. So I first tried it as a Scrabble game that people were playing online, and that was a little flat because watching people type things into a computer isn't that interesting. But the desperation of, and people do this, there is a Butterball turkey hotline that people call. And I read this article about people who call on Thanksgiving, and I thought, there are people who actually call for a problem. And sometimes if you're just lonely and you need somebody to talk to, what would happen if you just called to talk on, it's somebody who has to answer and has to respond to you. And what would you do, to keep that conversation going? And that's what inspired it.
Oh, that's so cool. So there really is a Thanksgiving hotline. Wow.
There's hotlines for everything. King Arthur Flower has one. I mean, you can call if you're a lonely person, you could probably do a whole hotline circuit.
Wow,
people to talk
that's a good idea. Some good advice if anyone needs to make some extra cash during this time too. Has anyone here used this Thanksgiving hotline? Honestly,
I would admit to it, but I have not.
Looks like she used it once or twice now. Oh, that's so cool. Well, I didn't know you also had people self-tape, so I'd love to hear from Jeremiah and Jen. How was it producing a film like this during isolation? Being on top of everything while not actually being in the same room with actors and everyone. How, Jen, I'd love to hear from you first. Yeah, what was it like producing this?
It was just, obviously it's a different animal, and it was just presented its own unique set of challenges, really. We had to figure out how to be able to do all of these things, but I think the biggest thing was having the actors shoot themselves. And so we had to pick, choose actors that were, and these two are so perfect in these roles, but we had to, know that they could also believably shoot themselves in these, to make it look cohesive. So I think that was, part of it. And, the three of us worked so well together that it just seemed like a very seamless process. And we had done it, I think, a few times already at this point. And so it just, it was kind of effortless. It was great.
Oh, you guys did a great job making that seem so smooth. And I would think it'd be a little scary, especially as an actor, being like, oh, you need to shoot this yourself for the short film. But also, I mean, Jeremiah, as a director, I mean, how was it that you got because usually, you know, directors are working with them in person, and I'm not sure if you guys had that opportunity, but, you know, setting up the camera, getting the shots exactly how you wanted. How was it directing this without being in the room?
Well, it's a curious challenge. First thing that we did before filming was we did a Zoom rehearsal, very much like we're doing right now, where we're in these tiny little boxes and the actors had the chance to rehearse and work together and play and run the scene a bunch of times so that we could get the baseline right. And then when they shot, they were able to have a computer just off camera and were able to play with each other during the call. So they were able to hear each other's voices, play off of each other's responses during the take. And also they were given very simple instructions of like basically a shot list. They were their own director of photography, as it were. So they would, you know, before they shot, they would always send me the wide shot, the medium shot, the close up, and the inserts, and so on, so that Jen and I had a sense of like what they were, you know, what those shots were going to be and how they might cut together. So all that stuff was figured out in advance, like wardrobe and what room they were going to be in, and what and what we weren't going to show, what side of the room looked better for camera. And then Joy and Chip, the two actors, went crazy and shot like David Fincher-esque levels of takes. I mean, I think Joy shot like 100 clips of all of her work. So it was quite a bit to go through. The editor, Ben McHugh, was like, look, you gotta circle some of these takes. Like, I can't watch like thousands and thousands, like the hours of footage that we have for this little 10-minute film. So we narrowed it down, and then Ben, Suze, Jen, and I like went through it together and honed it down into the 10-minute piece that you saw.
Wow, that is so interesting.
Yeah, Purple Heart should be given to our editor, Ben McHugh, who's just amazingly patient, just sifting through these, so much footage. And we'd go back and forth on whether, you know, because there are elements of surprise in the script that we won't go into here, but it's about, okay, how much do we show? Which shot do we use? Things like that. And the dedication of the two actors to be there for each other, because I think to do these 90 takes, the gentleman who, Chip, who plays Daniel, stayed there and read lines to Joy just to be there for her, to give her stuff to work off of, even though he wasn't the one taping that day. And vice versa, Joy did that for Chip. So it was a full court press effort.
I mean, I commend you guys to not only people are finding ways to work during the pandemic, but usually you'll hear, you know, get it tested before and we'll all shoot a film. But for you guys to all be remote and find a way to do that, I think that's so awesome. And so much of that has to do with, as you guys said, you know, working with each other. It seems like a cohesive team. So have you all worked with each other before? And I would love to hear Susanna and just get a little reaction. So you guys are familiar working with each other?
Oh yeah, it's a wonderful synergy we have with each other, of trust and playfulness, and let's go for it and let's try something new. And one of the things I think, if there are silver linings to this wretched situation we're in, is the creativity that comes through limitation. And I think it gave us permission to say, what the heck, let's just try it. Let's just try this one. Let's try, you know, let's try a Rashomon-like tragedy. Let's try a romantic comedy. Okay, let's try a 3-part miniseries. And I think maybe if there wasn't a pandemic, we'd be a little more careful and a little more circumspect and like, ooh, maybe we should plan more carefully. And it was like, what the heck? What's the worst that can happen? And some really cool stuff came out of it. It was like, you know, you plant the bulbs, but you don't know what the flower's going to be. And some really wonderful things came out of it so far, and we're doing more.
No, that's great to hear. That's great to hear that you're doing more. I'd love to hear more about that. But first, I've been asking a lot of filmmakers this, and I think it's wonderful to ask you guys, because you literally filmed in isolation physically and, you know, obviously during this time. I'll talk to you first, Jen. How is it that, you know, how is it producing during this time? How is it so different compared to producing before the pandemic? And how are you staying afloat and just staying creative during this climate?
Well, I guess the biggest difference is that it's just much less hands-on. And, we shot this, I think, gosh, in April or May. So it was like we were still actually in quarantine, like no one was going anywhere, like no one was working, production was still shut down. And there was this learning curve of we were all still figuring out Zoom, and we were figuring out, all of the things. So that, I guess, was its own challenge to begin with, because I am just not tech savvy at all. So yeah, that was sort of like baby steps there. And then once we got the hang of it, we just kept going and kept going. And we had such a good time doing these that we were like, like Sue said, like, let's what else can we do? What our artists have to create. So we were like, just keep going. So yeah, it's a lot different than working regularly. And also this is a much smaller team, and it's a lot less sort of, it's fewer steps, I guess, because it is less hands-on. But also, in that respect, like as a producer, you're relying on everyone else that much more. And luckily we had such great teams and such great actors and editors, and everyone was just like, yeah, let's do this. Like, it was such a great team effort.
Definitely. That's awesome. And Jeremiah, I mean, what was it like for you, just staying creative, especially as a director? Directors want, I'm sure they want so badly to, see the actor and see it in front of your eyes. And just how are you staying creative and sticking with your director and your craft during this time?
Well, when you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I believe that's the truth. Once the pandemic began, I got the feeling that there are all these actors who are incredibly hungry to work and create. And that became the most important part for me, was that Suze, Jen, and I put together a series of projects, including Hotline, where they were all shot in this style. Now, it is a bit of a headache, like once not just because I can't be there, but also you've got all these technical requirements that you never even thought of. Like normally it's like, all right, we're shooting with the red camera. Here's our lighting package. Here are our trucks. Here's the location, 12-hour day, 6 hours in is lunch, And even now, it's like, okay, masks and face shields and, vaccinations and all, and tests and all that sort of stuff. With these pandemic films where the actors shoot remotely, there are different considerations. Like, are we all shooting at the same frame rate? Are we able to intercut between, like what time of day are we shooting? We can't have one person shooting during the daytime and another person shooting at nighttime. Does the light match? They're on a phone call. It's supposed to be the same time. I mean, all of these things, it's a little bit more than you would think, it's a little bit more of a pain than one might assume. It might be what one might think would be very easy, like just grab a cell phone, set up a wide, medium, and a close and all that stuff. But it wound up being hellishly complex in a way that was different than a normal film set where you're dealing with 15 to 30 people. Here you're dealing with an actor who might not know how to set up a medium shot and might not know an eye line, might not know if one character is looking left, the other one should be looking right. Those sort of things were the hard part for me during this process, but one does love a challenge. So there you go. We made Hotline.
Yes, you guys definitely successfully made that challenge possible. That's so awesome and so inspiring hearing how you guys did it. My last question for you guys, of course, I have to ask this, is why did you submit to Garden State? I would love to know, Susanna, what it means to have something that you wrote and a piece of work that you said, what the hell, let's just make something. Who cares if it fails? And obviously didn't. It's accepted into this festival. So many people will be watching it. I'd love to hear, how does it feel to have your film in Garden State?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because Jeremiah and my film called How Do You Type a Broken Heart was in the Garden State Film Festival 2019. So, and that's when they actually had it. And we got to see the beautiful convention center. It was the first time I was in Asbury Park. I loved it. It was great. Opening night was thrilling. It was like sparkling lights. And I think the governor came, and it was like so super duper cool. And I just loved the festival. And we were so proud. It was my first film, and Jeremiah's 1000th, but and we both came and we had an amazing time. So as soon as these films were ready, we kind of said, okay, if we're going to submit, it's got to be the Garden State, because it's just so much fun and such a gathering of incredible talent. So if we can, even make a tiny splash in the ocean, it's worth it.
Oh, I love that. That's so awesome. And Jeremiah, so this isn't your first time at Garden State. How's it feel to have Hotline in it?
Whoa, we're so privileged. We had such a great time at Garden State last time. I mean, it's just such a welcoming environment. It's very generous to filmmakers. You've treated your audience with immense courtesy. It was an incredibly well-run festival.
Yes.
You know, all these things make a difference. When you have a really good experience at a film festival and you feel like the programmers really know their business, you really want to go back. So in a way, showing Hotline at your festival feels like coming home again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeremiah. And Jen, I mean, I'd love to know from you, what is it like having something that you produced in Garden State? Are you familiar with the festival as well?
Yes, this is actually my second time here. I was had a film here last year that was also directed by Jeremiah. And actually that was I had known about the festival. I have lots of friends that had screened her before. Last year was my first time. And of course that was the first like virtual festival of the year. But even that said, like, you know, everything went so smoothly and everyone was so wonderful and did such a great job and just saw some really amazing films. And so I was excited to submit again this year. And, you know, when we finished Hotline, we were like, gosh, we should probably, you know, take this on to festivals and see. And so, you know, as the minute Garden State opened, we were like, there you go. And so I feel very lucky to be here again.
That's so great. And I love that you guys came in 2019 and you got to see Asbury for the first time, Susanna. And Jen, you were there for the first ever virtual festival. Actually, Garden State was the first to go virtual. So that's awesome that you were there. And then this year we have a hybrid and you guys all get to be here again. So that's so awesome. It just comes around full circle. We're so happy that you guys love Garden State and continue to submit because Garden State really cares about their filmmakers. They want to make sure it's like you know, a family, a home. So we love that you guys keep coming back and we hope that that never changes. So congratulations again. And for everyone watching, you can actually watch Hotline in person, which is really cool. We have a lot virtual. This one will be in person at the Berkeley Hotel in the Kingsley Ballroom, Saturday the 27th in the film block of 8:15 p.m. to 10:15 p.m. So hopefully we'll get to see you there. They get to meet the filmmakers and everyone has a great time watching Hotline. Such a cool, unique little fun short. So congrats again. And thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you so much for having us. This was so much fun.
It really was. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Sophia.